Relax and listen to the voice. Hello everyone. In this installment, we are going to dive into some of the scariest legends, monsters, urban legends, and mythological creatures from around the world. Buckle in. Here we go. The Odyzi is a type of vampire creature told in the legends of the Iwi people of southern Togo, who turns itself into a firefly or other insect to feed before returning to its human form. The Odyzi can transform themselves into any number of common insects which are seemingly harmless and very difficult to capture. The Odyzi have a taste only for the blood of the innocent. They are hunters of children, and only children, and they especially like to feed on infants. They can also feed on palm oil and coconut water, and often will raid a village's entire supply of these, but they become dangerously weak if they do not feed on the blood of children. An Odyzi can sustain itself without needing to kill any child. It can take enough blood to survive. However, if the Odyzi is deterred or thwarted from feeding for a long enough period of time, it can go in a ravenous frenzy for blood. Often, when the vampire reaches this stage of hunger, even the victims who survive become infected with a deadly disease which eventually kills them. The Odyzi can also have the power to possess a human and become a living vampire. When the Odyzi is captured, it will revert to its human form. According to legends, a human sorcerer can also willingly become possessed by an Odyzi spirit for the abilities and powers that they may gain. As an Odyzi host, they are able to change their form, like a shapeshifter, from human to something else, by utilizing the magic. When they are captured, however, the magic will be lost, and they will revert back to their human form. This is the only way to destroy the Odyzi, but catching them is the trick. There is no way to protect against an Odyzi. Nothing will keep them out, or keep a child safe from their attacks. The only measure that can be taken against them is capturing them and destroying them in their human form. The safest thing that one can do is to keep up on their supply of coconut water and palm oil, and potentially set up a trap. In ancient Egyptian religion and mythology, Amit was the beast associated with the time of judgment. Amit was depicted in funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, as a composite female creature with the head of a crocodile, the front legs of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Those souls whose hearts did not balance in the scale of truth were devoured by this beast, and thus that person was consigned to oblivion. In the Hall of Judgment, Amit, the Eater of the Dead, or the Devourer, waited impatiently at the feet of the scribe god Thoth, while the heart of the dead person was weighed in one pan on a great scale of balance. The other pan held an ostrich feather, the feather of Mot. If the dead person's deeds were pure, reverent, and honest, and their heart was not heavy, the heart and the feather balanced out. In such a case, Thoth would record that the person should be spared and become one of the blessed dead. The dead would then be ushered into the presence of the god of the underworld, Osiris, who himself had risen from the dead, and like him, would live forever. If, however, the scales tipped and the heart was heavier than the feather, the person was proved to be unworthy of eternal life. In this case, the jackal-headed funerary god, Anubis, would throw the heart to Amit. She would eagerly devour it, and the person would perish forever. Jorogumo is a demonic creature belonging to Japanese folklore. The Jorogumo is a yokai spirit whose body is that of an attractive woman and limbs of that of a killer spider. A Jorogumo is the evolution of a spider that receives magical powers when it reaches 400 years of life. The spider's anatomy changes dramatically at this point. The form evolves, and she transforms into a beautiful and attractive woman. She then stops feeding on insects and begins to only devour humans. She attracts to her nests young men who are in search of one-night stands. This spider demon attracts young men with her beauty and the melodious music she plays with the biwa. When this Japanese creature is about to eat, it abandons its human form and transforms into a gigantic, menacing spider. As the legend goes, its size can reach 2 meters in height, and its legs join to form its abdomen. These spiders are solitary creatures that live in the bowels of forests, in remote caves, or in abandoned houses, far away from society. The Jorogumo are highly intelligent, cunning and heartless beings with no feelings and an insatiable hunger. During the Edo period, it was very common to hear stories about a beautiful woman who lured men into her hiding place. Then the woman would begin to play her biwa, bringing a beautiful melody to life. This music had the ability to paralyze her victim, as she then enveloped him in her powerful web, from which it was almost impossible to escape. In addition to the web, these Japanese spirits possess a deadly venom which slowly weakens their prey. They eat men in the quietest of ways. Sometimes their victims are even used for incubation of their future offspring, or they just keep their human for a future meal. The Jorogumo have the ability to control other spiders with their magic, either to detect the location of a new victim or to follow their trail. They also have the ability to spit acid in order to burn the bones of their victims. This ability is used to cover their tracks if they feel threatened or they know they are in danger of being discovered. The Jorogumo are said to run very fast and have great jumping powers. Much as an ordinary spider would use these abilities, it allows them to corner their victims if they are trying to escape, as well as helping the Jorogumo escape. The Jorogumo is said to build large spider webs to make hunting easier, and, much like the spiders that we know, can climb walls and has a great stealth ability. A Japanese legend tells us that the only way to escape a Jorogumo is to love a person with all of your heart. This way, it is impossible to fall under the spell of this seductive woman and her hypnotic music. But if your heart belongs to no one, there is also the possibility of killing her by throwing diatomite at her. Diatomite is a fossilized powder from an algae also called diatomite. This magical powder will totally dehydrate the whole body of the arachnid woman. The Jorogumo are also afraid of fire, so you can burn them to kill them. It is said that the samurai of the Edo period tried to kill them with a sword or a stake. The weapon must pierce the thorax or abdomen of the beast, and this is the most difficult way to kill them, as they have a hard exoskeleton just as a spider would. There are several stories involving this mythological creature. Here is the most popular. A man was resting by a waterfall when he felt his feet were stuck to a powerful spider web. The man acted quickly and he managed to escape. Back in his village, he warned all of the people of the creature's presence. They then named the creature Jorogumo. A woodcutter arrived in the area and he lost his axe in the water of a lake. A beautiful woman then appeared and returned his tool. Before she disappeared, she asked him not to tell anyone what had happened, as the village was telling false rumors about her. Time passed, and the woodcutter got drunk at night, revealing his scary story. He fell asleep as usual, but never woke up again. Allegedly, he was taken by the Jorogumo. Resurrected corpses of Viking warriors, the Drer, were terrifying, zombie-like mythological creatures who roamed the world searching for their victims. The Drer could be clearly recognized by the stench of rotting flesh and their skin being a deathly black or blue color. According to legend, they possessed staggering strength and could increase their body as they liked, and were able to haunt the dreams of the living. In some versions of the myth, these undead mythological creatures were also thought to have several magical powers, such as shape-shifting, premonitions, and weather control. The only motivation for these bloodthirsty mythological creatures was to slaughter any living being, whether it be human or livestock, to satiate their thirst for flesh and blood. The Drer condition appeared to be contagious, similar to the modern ideas of zombies, as those who were killed by the Drer would resurrect themselves as a similar creature. The Drer were said to be pretty much indestructible, and that the only way to kill them was through decapitation, incineration of the body, and then discarding the ashes into the sea. An Aswang is an umbrella term for various shape-shifting, evil creatures in Filipino folklore. The Aswang is an inherently evil werewolf and vampire-like creature and is the subject of a wide variety of myths and stories. Spanish colonists noted that the Aswang was the most feared among the mythical creatures of the Philippines, even in the 16th century. The myth of the Aswang is well known throughout the Philippines. Other regional names for the Aswang include tick-tick, whack-whack, and suck-suck, which is allegedly the noise it makes when chasing its prey. Aswang is derived from the Sanskrit word asura, which means demon. Sometimes the creature is also called balbal, or ghoul, which replaces the cadaver with banana trunks. The wide variety of descriptions in the Aswang stories make it difficult to settle upon a fixed definition of Aswang appearances or activities. However, several common themes that differentiate Aswangs from other mythological creatures do emerge. Aswangs are shapeshifters. Stories recount Aswangs living as regular townspeople. As regular townspeople, they are quiet, shy, and elusive. But at night, they transform into creatures such as a cat, pig, bird, or most often, a dog. They enjoy eating unborn fetuses and small children, favoring their livers and hearts. Some of these allegedly have long proboscises, which they use to suck the children out of their mother's wombs or from their homes. Some of the Aswangs are so thin that they can hide themselves behind a bamboo post. Though they are allegedly very fast and silent, some of them also make noises, like the tick-tick, whose name is derived from the sounds that it produces, which are louder and further away to confuse its potential victim. These creatures are sometimes known to replace their live victims or stolen cadavers with doppelgangers made from tree trunks or other plant materials. To spot an Aswang in the daytime, look for your upside-down reflection within their eyes. The Groot Slang, or Groot Slang, meaning big snake in Afrikaans and Dutch, is a legendary cryptid that is reputed to dwell in a deep cave in Richtersveld, South Africa. According to legend, the Groot Slang is a primordial creature as old as the world itself. Many tales state that gods, new to the crafting of things, made a terrible mistake in the Groot Slang's creation. They gave it tremendous strength, tremendous cunning, and a brilliant intellect. Once the gods had realized their mistake, they split the Groot Slang into separate creatures, and therefore created the first elephants and the first snakes. But according to legend, one of the original Groot Slangs escaped, and from that, the first sire, all other Groot Slangs were born. It is claimed that the Groot Slang devours elephants by luring them into its cave. The cave is known as the Wonder Hole, or the Bottomless Pit. Supposedly, it connects to the sea, which is 40 miles away. According to many local legends, the cave is filled with diamonds. The Groot Slang is also said to live in warm rivers and lakes. In Benin, within the Republic of Benin, in West Africa, the Groot Slang is said to be a huge elephant-like creature with a serpent's tail. Sometimes, the Groot Slang is depicted as a snake with orange gems for eyes. Also, according to the tales, Groot Slangs covet gems, particularly diamonds, and despite the creature's lust for cruelty, victims can often bargain for their freedom by offering a Groot Slang enough precious gems. While searching for treasure in the Richtersveld of South Africa in 1917, English businessman Peter Grayson disappeared after members of his party were attacked and injured by lions, prompting legends that the Groot Slang had killed him. In Jewish folklore, the popular belief of an evil spirit which enters into a living person, cleaves onto his soul, causes mental illness, talks through his mouth, and represents a separate and alien personality is called a Dybbuk. The term Dybbuk appears neither in Talmudic literature nor in the Kabbalah, where this phenomenon is always called the evil spirit. The term was introduced into literature only in the 17th century from the spoken language of German and Polish Jews. The act of attachment of the spirit to the body became the name of the spirit itself. However, the verb cleave is found throughout Kabbalistic literature, where it denotes the relations between the evil spirit and the body. Stories about Dybbuks are common in the time of the Second Temple and the Talmudic periods, particularly in the Gospels. They are, however, not as prominent in medieval literature. At first, the Dybbuk was considered to be a devil or a demon which entered the body of a sick person. Later, an explanation common among other people was added, namely that some of the Dybbuk are the spirits of dead persons who were not laid to rest and thus became demons. This idea, also common in medieval Christianity, combined with the doctrine of Gilgul in the 16th century, became widespread and accepted by large segments of the Jewish population, together with the belief in Dybbuks. They were generally considered to be souls which, on account of the enormity of their sins, were not even allowed to transmigrate, and as denuded spirits, they sought refuge in the bodies of living persons. The entry of a Dybbuk into a person was a sign of his having committed a secret sin, which opened a door for the Dybbuk. A combination of beliefs current in the non-Jewish environment and popular Jewish beliefs influenced by the Kabbalah form these conceptions. The Kabbalistic literature of Luria's disciples contains many stories and protocols about the exorcism of Dybbuks. Numerous manuscripts present detailed instructions on how to exorcise them. The power to exorcise Dybbuks was given to accomplished Hasidim. They exorcised the Dybbuk from the body, which was bound by it, and simultaneously redeemed the soul by providing a restoration for him, either by transmigration or by causing the Dybbuk to enter hell. Moses Cordovero defined the Dybbuk as an evil pregnancy. Special booklets on the exorcisms of famous spirits which took place have also been published. The last protocol of this kind, published in Jerusalem in 1904, concerns a Dybbuk which entered the body of a woman and was exorcised. The phenomena connected with the beliefs and in the stories about Dybbuk usually have their factual background in cases of hysteria and sometimes even in manifestations of schizophrenia. Another creature from southern Africa is the Inamba. The Inamba is a legendary cryptid who lives by the waterfalls and is most commonly seen at the Howick Falls in South Africa. This cryptid resembles a snake, except for the head, which looks like the head of a horse. The Inamba is aquatic and lives in lakes and waterfalls, so some suspect it to be a species of giant eel instead of a snake. This creature is often said to be over 20 feet long. Accounts of the Inamba actually date back to Aboriginal cave paintings found throughout the KwaZulu-Natal area. The cave paintings depict creatures which archaeologists have come to refer to as rain animals due to their association with vicious summer storms. The Inamba are believed by most investigators to be a large species of freshwater eel, such as the Anguilla mozambica or the Anguilla marmorata, both of which can grow to a respectable length of about 6 feet. The natives, however, suggest that the Inamba are much larger and bear some decidedly supernatural characteristics. As recently as 1998, residents of the Ingwavuma and Pongola regions of the KwaZulu-Natal region blamed the violent Inamba for a brutal storm in which thousands of people lost their homes. These cryptids first claimed international attention in 1996, when a local newspaper offered a reward for anyone who could produce photographic evidence of the creature's existence. Although 2 photographs were published, neither one gave any clear indication of the animal's appearance, and were both later accused of being hoaxes. The admittedly dubious images only served to fuel the fierce controversy surrounding the existence of the creatures. Just a year later, in a region not very far from Howick, a similar controversy raged regarding the reality of another large aquatic predator. Locals in this area claimed that they were under siege by a huge crocodilian creature with a long neck and a skull-piercing proboscis, dubbed the African brain sucker, or, in the native tongue, Mamlambo. In May of 1996, yet another flurry of media attention responded to the rumor that the South African government was planning on capturing the animal that lurked beneath Howick Falls, and had plans to transplant it into an environmentally protected area. The local Zulus were outraged by the plan, petitioning their local council for an intervention, though not for the same reasons that PETA members might expect. The residents were terrified that the expedition sent to capture the beast might not be prepared to deal with the vicious disposition of the creature, and that the resulting carnage might spill over into the local villages unless the Inamba's rage could be abated. The Mananangal, which is sometimes confused with the Aswang, is a creature that is often sighted in the Philippines. The Mananangal is an evil, man-eating, and blood-sucking monster. The Mananangal is described as a hideous, scary female creature, which is capable of severing its upper torso and sprouting huge bat-like wings to fly into the night in search of its victims. The name comes from the Tagalog word tanggal, which literally translates as remover or separator. In this case, one who separates itself. The name also originates from an expression used for a severed torso. It is said that the Mananangal mostly prey on sleeping pregnant women, using an elongated proboscis-like tongue to suck the hearts out of fetuses or the blood of someone who is sleeping. The severed lower torso is left standing, and it is said to be the more vulnerable of the two halves. Sprinkling salt or smearing crushed garlic or ash on top of the standing torso is a fatal attack on the creature. If this is done, then the upper torso would be unable to rejoin itself and would die by sunrise. The Mananangal is known to hide in volcanic caves by daylight. In many ways, the Mananangal shares some features with the vampires of Balkan folklore, such as its dislike of garlic and vulnerability to sunlight. The legend of the Mananangal is popular in the Visayan region of the Philippines, especially in the western provinces of Capiz and Antique. There are varying accounts of the features of the Mananangal. Like vampires, Visayan folklore creatures, and Aswangs, Mananangals are also said to abhor garlic and salt. They were also known to avoid daggers, light, vinegar, spices, and the tail of a stingray, which historically could have been fashioned into a whip. Folklore of similar creatures can be found in the neighboring nations of Indonesia and Malaysia. The province of Capiz is the subject or focus of many Mananangal stories, as with the stories of other types of mythical creatures, such as ghosts, goblins, ghouls, and Aswangs. Sightings are purported here, and certain local folk are said to believe in their existence, despite modernization. Here is an excerpt from a statement by a Filipino who is claimed to have had an encounter with this creature. I had a real experience of seeing this monster. I was a young boy at that time, and our house was in a small barrio, with only a few neighbors and surrounded with trees. The wife of our neighbor was pregnant at that time, and their house was a small hut with windows that could not be closed, which simply means that you can see the stars in their house during nighttime. It was a very noisy midnight that I could not sleep. Our neighbor's dogs kept howling in our backyards. Since I couldn't sleep due to all the commotion, I got up and I tried to check it. I slightly opened our window, just enough for my eyes to see everything outside. I was fascinated because the moon was so bright and there was no dogs in our backyard, so I looked out at our neighbor's house, and there I saw the howling dogs. But when I looked up at the window, I saw something dark floating there. It was like a person floating horizontally, facing our neighbor's open window. I was very scared because it's hard to describe that dark figure floating thing. Even the surrounding areas were clear. I closed the window and I went straight to my bed, covering myself with a pillow, and I went to sleep again. On the very next day, I talked to my friend about what had happened the night before. I asked him if there was something unusual that had happened in their house that night. He said that he and his siblings were guarding their mother all the time, and they were aware of the possible attacks of the Aswang or Mananangal. He told me that he had accidentally tripped over something that seemed like a hairy tail, and then he had thrown garlic all over it, and then it just suddenly disappeared. The Mongolian death worm, the Ogoi korkoi, its native name means intestine worm, due to its red, blood-like color and size, which is usually described as the size of an intestine. It has been described by many to be from 2 to 7 feet long, and has the ability to spit out a corrosive, yellow saliva and to generate blasts of electricity. However, this latter power is thought as being folkloric by the nomads of the Gobi. Western culture has come to call this monster the Mongolian death worm. Mongolian nomads believe the giant worm covers its prey with an acidic substance that turns everything a corroded yellow color. Legend says that as the creature begins to attack, it raises half of its body out of the sand and starts to inflate until it explodes, releasing the lethal poison all over the unfortunate victims. This poison is so venomous that the prey die nearly instantly. Livestock and humans are allegedly the main prey of the Mongolian death worm. Because Mongolia had been under Soviet control until 1990, very little was known about the death worm in the West. In recent years, investigators have been able to look for evidence of the creature's existence. Ivan Mackerly, one of the leading Loch Ness Monster detectives, studied the region and interviewed many Mongolian people about the worm. Due to the sheer volume of sightings and strange deaths, he came to the conclusion that the death worm was more than just a legend. No one is entirely sure what the worm actually is. Experts are certain that it's not a real worm because the Gobi Desert is too hot an area for annelids to survive. Some have suggested that this might be a skink, but skinks usually have little legs and scaly skin, whereas witness accounts specify that this worm is limbless and smooth-bodied. The probable explanation is that the death worm is a new species of Amphisbaena, or worm lizard, a group of burrowing reptiles. Although the native Mongolian peoples are convinced of the death worm's nature, it will take more years of research to satisfy the rest of the world's scientific community. In 2005, an expedition from the Center of Fortean Zoology crossed 1,000 miles of the Gobi Desert on the track of the death worm. They concluded that the worm was probably a large, unknown type of worm lizard, and that the powers attributed to it were mostly just of legend. Ghosts are quite common in Chinese folklore, one of the most common being the hanged ghost, or Diao Si Gui. These are the spirits of people who have committed suicide or have been the victims of execution, who are said to haunt the location where they died. According to legend, they appear as a corpse with a long red tongue that hangs out of their mouth, and they try to convince any passerby to join them in the afterlife. According to legend, the slower and more painful the death, as in a slow suffocation rather than a quick snap of the neck, the more likely that a person will become one of the Diao Si Gui. In popular artwork, these ghosts are often depicted with long red tongues hanging from their mouths, a noose around their neck, and their feet dangling loose in the air. Legend says that if you ever come across the hanged ghost, you should never make eye contact with them, for if you do, they will lure you toward them in a mesmerized state and persuade you to hang yourself as well. In some versions of tales, if a hanged ghost successfully persuades a person to hang themselves, their victim becomes a hanged ghost, and the original hanged ghost gets to go free and move on into the afterlife. In other versions, a hanged ghost is not bound to any one location and can haunt a person for days on end, slowly persuading them to commit suicide. When the Diao Si Gui feel that the time is right, they will appear to the person in a high place and lower a noose down to them. The Suchan translated to English meaning dirt child or child of the hammer, is a snake-like cryptid from the mountainous regions of western Japan. These creatures are commonly reported as slithering deep within the watery caves of Shikoku and Honshu. Signs that a Suchan may be in your area include hearing a mouse-like squeak coming from a river, or in some cases, a seemingly human voice mimicking your conversations from the depths of a dank cave. They are reported to be between 30 and 80 centimeters long. The name Suchan is used in western Japan. However, it is known as Bachi-hebi in northeastern Japan. This cryptid has a total of 50+ names all over Japan. Although there are some dependencies throughout the various sightings, the Suchan is widely regarded to look like a very wide, common snake with the central girth wider than its head and tail. Large plate-like scales run down its body. It reportedly has fangs and venom similar to common snakes. Some accounts also describe the Suchan as being able to jump up to a meter in distance, followed immediately by a second jump while still in the air. The Suchan was also reported to sometimes swallow its tail and roll like a wheel, similar to the hoop snake. According to legend, some Suchan are able to speak and are notorious liars. They are also said to have a taste for alcohol. The Suchan was a popular and well-known cryptid in Japan, with many residents believing in its existence or claiming to have seen it. On May 3rd, an annual Suchan festival is held in Higashi Shirakawa in Gifu Prefecture, where the roots of the legend can be traced. At this festival, participants go Suchan hunting with a 1,280,000 yen reward for anyone who can find one. The government of Yoshi, Okayama, once offered a 20 million yen reward for the successful capture of a Suchan In June of 1994, a man named Kazuaki Noda and his wife reported having come across a huge snake with a thick body, like a beer bottle, and a head described as being like that of a tortoise. On May 8, 2000, a farmer named Suji Tanaka reported having come across 2 metallic-colored snakes with tails like rats. In the same year in June, a woman named Mitsuko Arima reported a Suchan swimming along a river. She describes her experience as follows. "I was surprised. I just pointed at it and I asked, 'What are you? Who are you?' It didn't answer me, but it just stared. It had a round face and it didn't take its eyes off of me. I can still see the eyes now. They were big and round and looked like they were floating on the water. I've lived over 80 years, but I've never seen anything like that in my life." One notable case involves a farmer allegedly spotting a Suchan while cutting grass. He described it as having a face similar to that of Doraemon, a popular Japanese cartoon character. He reported to have injured it with his weed whacker before the creature made its escape. A few days later, an old woman discovered its dead body lying by the side of a stream and buried it, not realizing how important this creature was. When word about these encounters eventually got out, the local government sent out a team to dig it up and send it to the local university for examination. The professor who examined the creature said it may be a Suchan but scientifically speaking, it was some kind of a snake. Many other bodies and shed skin have come forward, but these are mostly thought to be from known species of snakes. Most Suchan sightings are thought to be sightings of misidentified known species of snakes. It is also possible that the sightings could be that of snakes that have recently been fed, giving them a bulging middle. They could also be misidentified sightings of blue-tongued skinks, which are kept as pets by some Japanese people. It's possible that they may have escaped their homes and were spotted by other people, and if not, it is possible that the Suchan may be a new species of snake altogether. Jikinninki are malevolent spirits in Japanese Buddhism known as human-eating ghosts. According to legend, they are the souls of greedy, selfish, or impious individuals cursed after death to seek out and devour human corpses to relieve their eternal hunger. Similar to gaki, or hungry ghosts, Jikinninki are constantly starving but can only find temporary relief by consuming the flesh and bones of the recently deceased. According to legend, while traveling through the mountains, the monk Mus Soseki came across the Jikinninki. Lost and exhausted, he came upon a dilapidated hermitage where an elderly monk provided directions to a nearby village. Once there, the village chief's son invited Soseki to stay the night and recite funerary prayers over his father's corpse. During the ritual, Soseki sensed a presence and found himself frozen in place. A dark, hazy shape crept in and devoured the chief's remains before disappearing silently. Jikinninki are often found near human settlements, mainly in abandoned temples or old ruins, as humans are their primary source of food. However, they avoid excessive contact with the living and do not enjoy their gruesome existence. Eating the dead only briefly alleviates some of their unbearable hunger and suffering. Jikinninki are closely related to gaki, or hungry ghosts, in Buddhistic belief. They are born when an individual's evil deeds in life corrupt their soul. Some Jikinninki were priests who were unable to pass on after death, while others developed a taste for human flesh in life and then fully transformed into monsters. As they continued to feed on the dead, Jikinninki become increasingly monstrous in appearance and in spirit. Despite their terrifying nature, Jikinninki represent a fascinating aspect of Japanese folklore that continues to captivate imaginations. The Panggalan has reportedly been sighted in Mexico, the United States, and even spotted as far away as Russia and Indonesia. Though considered a chupacabra, this creature has many various names. The Panggalan is a chupacabra-like creature of Southeast Asian mythology. It is a variation of the vampire myth found in the Malay Peninsula. Some scientists think that the Panggalan and the Mananangal are the same cryptid because they are similar myths of creatures with almost exactly the same features and have a common root under the Austronesian language family. In Thailand, the Panggalan is called the Krasu, and there is a legend of a certain princess becoming the Krasu in centuries past after having been executed by burning. The Krasu is under a curse that makes it ever hungry and always active in the night when it goes out hunting to satisfy its gluttony, seeking blood to drink or raw flesh to devour. It may attack cattle or chicken in the darkness, drinking their blood and eating their internal organs. It may also prey on pieces of cattle, such as water buffalo that have died of other causes during the night. If blood is not available, the Krasu may eat feces or carrion. Clothes that were left outside could be found soiled with blood and excrement in the morning, allegedly after the Panggalan had wiped their mouth. Therefore, villagers would not leave clothes hanging to dry outside during the night hours. Here is one account of an encounter. I live in Indonesia, in West Java. There were reports of attacks on goats and sheep in some areas on my island. Some sheep or goats were dead, and they had no blood left. They weren't eaten, only their blood was sucked out until their bodies were dry. There are no predators known in my area to do this kind of attacks, but we don't know what attacked the sheep. People began to lock the pets up in cages, but it seemed like the animal or the animals could open the locks or the bolts of the cages. And even more shocking, some sheep were found outside of the cages, dead, but the doors appeared to have not been opened at all. Some of the sheep owners tried to guard their sheep, and they slept on the roofs of the cages, but the attacks still continued without their noticing anything, so people then began to get scared. They even put the sheep inside of their houses to keep them safe. After that, the attacks didn't happen very often, but since it was weird, it appeared in the local newspapers. I don't live near the attacks, so I never saw what the animals looked like. The attacks mostly happened when the dry season got too long, and it happened in areas close to the jungle. There were always many sheep dead in one attack, somewhere between 7 and 20 sheep. We do believe that there are chupacabras in Indonesia too. The most common remedy prescribed in Malaysian folklore to protect against a Mananangal attack is to scatter the thorny leaves of a local plant known as the menguacang and any other of the subspecies of these plants, which have sharp, thorny leaves, which would either trap or injure the exposed lungs, stomach, and intestines of the Mananangal as it flies in search of its prey. These thorns on the vine can also be looped around the windows of a house in order to snare the trailing organs. This is commonly done when a woman has just given birth. However, this practice will not protect the infant if the Mananangal decides to pass through the floorboards. In some instances, it is said that months before birth, a family member of the pregnant woman would plant pineapples under the house. The prickly fruit and the leaves of the pineapple would deter the Panggalan from entering through the floorboards. Once trapped, a Panggalan who attacks the house can then be killed with parangs or machetes. As an extra precaution, the pregnant woman often keeps scissors or betel nut cutters under a pillow, as the Panggalan is afraid of those items. Unlike the Mananangal, all Mananangal are females, and there is no variation in Malaysian folklore to suggest the Mananangal to be a male. Another notable difference between a Mananangal and a Mananangal is that the Mananangal detaches only her head with her lungs, stomach, and intestines attached, while leaving the body before coming back and soaking her innards in a prepared container filled with vinegar to fit back into the body. Additionally, unlike the Mananangal, which uses a proboscis-like tongue, a Mananangal is commonly depicted as having fangs. The number of fangs varies from one region to another, ranging from 2, like the western vampire, to an entire mouthful of sharp, jagged fangs. Pontiacs are women who died during childbirth, and are also known as vampiric ghosts. They are often described to be pale-skinned, with long hair, and dressed in white. They are also said to have long, sharp nails, and carry with them an awful stench. Pontiac is a dangerous spirit of a woman which is from Malaysian and Indonesian mythology. These creatures are said to be active at night, while during the day, the Pontiac spirit resides inside of banana trees. Pontiacs locate their prey by sniffing clothes that are left out to dry, which is one of the many reasons that Malays refuse to keep their clothes outside at night. They kill their victims by digging their sharp nails into the victim's stomach and devouring their organs. Pontiacs usually announce their presence through emulating the sound of a baby's cry. It is said that if the cry is loud, the Pontiac is far away, but if the cry is soft, then the Pontiac is very nearby. Similar to this, it is also said that if you hear a dog or a wolf howl, then she is far away, but if a dog is whimpering, the Pontiac is nearby. The Jabot Fofi, also known as the Congolese giant spiders, are a type of large arachnid cryptid which is said to inhabit the forests of the Congo, possibly representing a new species of arachnids. Many of the anecdotal tales describe the spiders digging a shallow tunnel under tree roots and camouflaging itself with a large screen of leaves. The spiders then create an almost invisible web between their burrow and a nearby tree, stringing the whole area with a network of trip lines. Some oblivious animal that's likely soon to meet their end upon a creature's menu will trip the line, alerting the spider. The victim will then be chased and pulled into the web. This type of predatory behavior is similar to that of several species of trapdoor spiders. Natives claim that the Jabaphofi eggs are a pale yellow-white and shaped like peanuts, and the hatchlings are bright yellow with a purple abdomen. Their coloration becomes darker and brown as they mature. Some of the peoples indigenous to the regions in the Congo where the Jabaphofi has been seen assert that the spider was once quite common, but has since become very rare. The fullest account by Westerners appears in a cryptozoological book by George Eberhardt. On page 204, Eberhardt relates the terrifying experience of an English couple traveling through a region of jungle in what is now called the Congo. R.K. Lloyd and his wife were motoring in the Belgian Congo in 1939 when they saw a large object crossing the trail in front of them. At first, they thought it was a cat or a monkey, but they soon realized that it was a spider with legs nearly 3 feet long. Cryptozoologist William J. Gibbons has hunted for what some people think may be a living Congolese dinosaur called Mokele Mabembe. On his third expedition in search of the creature, he came upon natives who related their experiences with these giant spiders. He shared his experience with readers upon his return to Canada. On this third expedition to Equatorial Africa, I took the opportunity to inquire if the pygmies knew of such a giant spider, and indeed they did. They speak of the Jabaphofi, which is a giant or great spider. They describe the spider that is generally brown in color, with a purple mark on the abdomen. The spiders allegedly grow to quite an enormous size, with a leg span of at least 5 feet. These giant arachnids weave together a layer made of leaves, similar in shape to the traditional pygmy hut, and they spin a circular web, said to be very strong, between 2 trees with a strand stretched across the game trail. These giant ground-dwelling spiders prey on the diminutive forest antelope, birds, and other small game, and are said to be extremely dangerous, not to mention highly venomous. The spiders are said to lay white, peanut-sized eggs in a cluster, and the pygmies give them wide berth when encountered, but have killed them in the past. According to the pygmies, the giant spiders were once very common, but are now a rare sight. In March of 2013, a video surfaced on YouTube of an alleged Jabaphofi caught on a night vision camera near a waterhole next to a tree in Mozambique. The Jabaphofi appears out of the darkness for a brief moment while scurrying into the darkness on the far right side of the screen. Is this video real or a hoax? Many people have decried that the video is nothing but CGI work. We recommend that you check it out for yourself. The Atan is a dangerous tsukumogami, or haunted antique, in Japanese culture. The Atan is a bolt of thin, unused white cotton cloth that is 1/10 in length, which equals about 10.6 meters in length by 30 centimeters in width. The Atan slithers through the air like a serpent at twilight, and legend says that it strangles and suffocates unsuspecting people to death. Though if you are a friend to Japanese yokai, there are also stories of the Atan giving you a ride upon it instead. Creatures similar to the Atan appear in some of the earliest Hayaki Yagayo picture scrolls. There are also a few modern urban legends from the Kagoshima prefecture having to do with sightings of cloth-shaped, unidentified flying objects. This yokai's modern appearance is largely thanks to Shigeru Mizuki's Kitaro, where it appears as a regular cast member. We wrap up this episode with another creature from Japan. Over the years, rumors have circulated in Japan about the existence of Arctic humanoid life forms inhabiting the icy waters of the Antarctic Ocean. These creatures have been reportedly observed on multiple occasions by crew members of government-operated whale researching boats. The creatures, called Ningan, which translates to human in English, are said to be completely white in color, with an estimated length of 20 to 30 meters. Eyewitnesses describe them as having a human-like shape, often with legs, arms, and even 5-fingered hands. Sometimes they are described as having fins or a large mermaid-like tail instead of legs, sometimes even described as having tentacles. The only visible or identifiable facial features are the eyes and the mouth. According to one account, crew members on deck observed what they initially thought was a foreign submarine off in the distance. When they approached, however, it became clear from the irregular shape of this thing that it was not man-made, and it seemed to be alive. This creature that had been sighted then quickly disappeared underwater. Some articles have speculated on the possibility of unidentified creatures inhabiting the southern seas, some which have included Google Earth screenshots showing what looks like a Ningan in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Namibia. To date, no solid evidence has been presented to confirm the existence of the Ningan. The government is believed to have kept detailed records of these sightings, but they have released no information to the public and have reportedly instructed eyewitnesses to remain silent. Ningan sightings seem to occur most frequently at night, making them all the more difficult to photograph or verify. In still images, the sea cryptids mostly just look like chunks of ice, though it is said that their smooth, human-like skin can be seen when the photographs are enlarged. In any case, no convincing photographs have been made public, either because they do not exist, or because, as some argue, the government does not want to invite undue scrutiny and tarnish the scientific reputation of the whale research programs. Various explanations have been given to debunk the Ningan sightings. These explanations include that the Ningan were misidentified whales, sharks, and squids. There was a possibility that this was a new species of giant manta ray. Some have said that there might be an aquatic sloth, perhaps an evolutionary descendant of the Thalassaurus. People have identified Ningan sightings to the misidentification of icebergs. They said that they could possibly be an undiscovered subspecies of beluga whale. Some who are more adventurous say that these could be an evolutionary relative of humans. However, this is unlikely due to their size, although their size could have changed through evolution. Thank you all for tuning in to this installment on legends, ghosts, and creatures from around the world. We hope that you have enjoyed this, and found it not only entertaining, but informational. We strongly urge anyone who has interest in these topics to jump online or head to a library, find a book, or find some good, reputable websites that can give you information. Enjoy the hunting, and until next time, sweet dreams.